Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Data Standard Audio Experience. On the show today, I have Sai, the co-founder and CTO of Spoonshot. And today we're speaking about domain-specialized data intelligence. So welcome to the show, Sai. It's such a pleasure to have you today.
Thanks, Catherine. Good to have you here.
Yeah. Could you just go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
All right, sure. Hi everyone. I'm Sai, co-founder and CTO of Spoonshot. I did my master's and bachelor's in computer science from IIT Madras in India. Specialized in compilers and machine learning, predominantly back in the days. I was always passionate about being associated with startups and been working with various mid-stage to early-stage startups in the initial stage of my career. Later started Spoonshot. So I've been till now I've been mostly solving the problems in the areas of search and recommendations. I've worked mostly on the algorithmic and also a bit on the engineering or the systems aspects as well. So just a quick intro about Spoonshot. We are a food and beverage sector specialized data intelligence startup. Think of us as, we are trying to organize the data of food to make it usable to answer any kind of domain specialized question. So our tool is mainly used by industry professionals to make more data driven decisions and be agile in their day-to-day workflows as well, using the tools that we develop. That's a quick intro about myself and Spoonshot.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And today the big topic is having to do with domain specialized data intelligence. So I wanted to ask you if you could just explain more about what this is, why is it needed, and any existing examples and trends that you've seen with this.
Sure, Kathy, that's a great question. So I think domain specialized intelligence, or in the recent days, people call it as vertical AI as well. Let's start with a couple of big trends that are really happening generally in the research space and also data intelligence as well. Okay, so I think there's no denial we live in an information age. We are inundated with data and information around us. But one of the biggest problems that is happening is a lot of this data is sitting in an unstructured format and is not directly organized or computable from a domain or a research perspective. So there is a big need in terms of the technologies to make this unstructured data to be made computable and enable seamless triangulation of finding any kind of information that you would want using various of these siloed data pieces or data sets that exist in different parts of the internet. So I think if you talk from a business point of view, I think whenever we talk about a competitive strategy for any business, there is a concept of Porter's 5 forces, people call. I think it's very important to understand these in a near real time and the factors, how your business is getting influenced by the external factors, and also how some of the things that you are doing is aligned with the market needs. I think this is a constant exercise one needs to do to stay relevant as a business. And the other insight about domain specialized intelligence is about, compared to how we used to work, there is an increasing number of knowledge workers that we have today compared to what we used to have in the world before. In a very simple way, knowledge worker is someone who consume data or information to do their job well. As simple as even you relying on doing constant Google search, for example, you can call yourself as a knowledge worker. So in a very simplistic way. All right. So I think the need to constantly educate yourself and be informed about the latest changes and that you should be concerned about, that is one of the biggest driving factors for this domain specialized intelligence. Again, in the context of, there is lots of data, need to find information that is relevant to us. Just imagine, even as someone in the software domain or data science domain, learning is a constant exercise, and also keeping yourself up to date is a constant exercise. But do you know what are the new kinds? We can't just be aware about every change that is happening in the technology space. I think what needs to happen is to stay relevant in this space, again, to do our job well. We need tools to help us to find information or data which can spot the right things and for the problems that we solve specifically. Okay, I think other way to put it, the information needs have become more specialized. We want more specific or more domain specialized questions compared to previously. We were okay to have generic information finding platforms, but now that paradigm is changing slowly bit by bit. For this to become a reality, one of the important things to happen is the underlying data that powers this information or the data intelligence need to have these rich attributes from a domain point of view. So that's the key to building this technology. I think to give, there are a bunch of examples that you can talk about. For example, if you are I'm talking about a domain specialized question. Let's say you are looking at a biomedicine field, understanding how the relationship between genome and clinical data, how does it work? Or the biology of diseases, some of the diagnostic options to best serve your patients. And if you take another field, a commercial real estate, how the brokers, lenders, and investors, and even insurance professionals try to understand data related to owners and the tenants who have lived in that property, and based on that, what is the current value? What is the best time to sell? What is the best time to purchase? A bunch of decisions like that. And also, if in another industry like fashion intelligence, what kind of styles are in trend right now? What is the consumer acceptance for a particular fabric or a color or a style? Right? And for us, because we are in the food and beverage domain, we deal with questions like, given a category of food, for example, let's say meat alternatives, which is one of the biggest trends right now. What is an opportunity for a specific flavor or an ingredient for any food company who wants to do any innovation or even a market research in this domain? So I think to answer these kind of domain specialized questions, generic information platforms does not make a cut. The data itself has to be entirely organized in a different way, which has got these rich attributes which can capture the meaning of a domain. So that's the high level intuition about data, domain specialized data intelligence, and why is it the need right now.
Yeah, great explanation. And can you also talk about some use cases for your business in general and just general intro about food and beverage industries?
Sure, absolutely. Let me just set the context about food and beverage industry. Again, let's just talk more from a tech point of view to start with. I think high level description one is data is not organized in this industry. Okay, as a consequence of that, there is no transparency. The decision making is inefficient, and compared to other verticals like health or finance sectors, technology penetration in food sector is quite minimal even till date. Okay, and we all know food is arguably one of the biggest sectors. I think there is a biological need for all of us to eat 3 times a day. The industry is actually facing a bunch of macro problems as we stand today. So to name a few: climate change, sustainability, efficient food production. The irrigation, the agricultural lands are decreasing day by day in terms of the area, while the world's population is increasing. There is depleting natural resources, food wastage is another growing concern. Alternative proteins, because the current meat industry is not able to, feed the nutritional budgets that is needed by every person in the world, right? There are new inventions that are coming in, like lab-made or a cell-based food or a plant-based meat alternatives, insect-based food. There are tons of it like that. So I think in the context of these, if you talk about, and also some of the problems that the businesses are facing, especially if you talk about CPG industry, which is on one side. When you talk about, by the way, food industry consists of tons of variety of businesses. Food service to start with, which consists of restaurants, hospitality industry, the hotels, and the FMCG sector. Broadly, you can call it. Okay. Let's talk about FMCG sector or CPG sector, like we call in US. There is a serious problem. Up to 80% of newly launched products from CPG companies are not seeing a commercial success, and they tend to fail within the 6 months of a launch. There are a lot of reasons why this is happening. Mainly, number one is today's average consumer is very different compared to what they were 10 years back. They have more access to information about the brands, products, and they have more choices via the channels they shop from. And consequently, consumers are more likely to explore, and they are quite dynamic and very less loyal as a consequence of that. We all live in this digital social fabric where we constantly get influenced by the data and the trends that are around us. And there is an increasing number of small and medium scale food and beverage companies which are giving tough competition to established brands. I think these companies are more nimble and they are more closer to a consumer problem. And because of these, the dynamics of the markets are very different again in terms of the supply. And last but not the least is there is a long turnaround time for a new product to see the light. For example, if you're talking about a chocolate bar that is in the supermarket that has been just launched right now, the research work or the project work would have kicked off at least 18 months back for that product to, just to start about, doing the consumer research, understanding about the needs, and then getting into the manufacturing stage, all of that. Okay, so that's a long time, which by the time you launch the product to the market, the assumptions that you made in the start itself are not valid anymore because of how the market dynamics are much more faster right now. So that's one of the biggest problems. And another issue is the innovation process in food and beverage sector has really not changed for a very long time now. So there are, I think, of course, the industry is waking up to this new reality or the digital adjustment. So the traditional ways of doing market research was more about, using manual surveys where there is limited set of people that you talk to and ask a specific set of questions, taste panels, or using historical sales data to gauge fitness of a product idea. And of course, there were siloed efforts from various departments, our marketing department, R&D department, and product innovation teams. They all used to work in an isolated manner, and there is no holistic way of solving this issue, solving this from a data point of view specifically. Last but not the least, the industry needs to act fast right now. There is a big role of data and technology to accelerate that decision-making process and improve the alignment between consumers and the industry. So this can only be possible by building data tools which gives holistic view of this dynamic ecosystem. So that's the quick intro about food and beverage sector. And to talk specifically about how we solve this problem, I think we tend to take a platform approach to this. And some of the important features that we have built in our data product is, number one, to solve the information overload. Each of us, even when we are domain specialized, our information needs are very different and are personalized to the problem, and the context is very different, right? So it's very important to develop tools today which can help the relevant data should discover you rather than you serendipitously discovering the data. That's a very important aspect to think about, right? So what this means is we have built a personalized insights engine which understands the information needs of our customers and have the understanding of the domain knowledge, of course. Using that, we tailor insights very specific to what kind of factors that you care about and what would be relevant to help you to aid your decision-making process specifically. Okay. And another important piece, because it's a decision-making tool, it's important to have a factor of explainability. Main importantly, because we are building a system of decision for the industry. In order to take an action on our insight, it is important for our customers to be able to build trust and understand them very deeply. So that's another big factor that we care about. And the next one is higher order thinking. This is a very common paradigm which is generally, talked about, how children learn and even what differentiate even experts from an average Joe on the street is about, ability to think deeply and using the domain knowledge to connect disparate dots of information. So this is one of the central pieces in how we aid information discovery using the domain knowledge itself. That is the higher order thinking. And last but not the least is early identification of trends. I think we are in the business of decision making, and we are in the business of trying to give competitive advantage to our customers. It's important for us to be able to spot these trends and also the consumer needs as early as possible, so that our customers or the businesses can act on these and then map it to their strategic opportunities that they have. Let's get into a few specific use cases, for example, to make it more easy to understand. For example, there are a bunch of domain specialized questions our customers keep asking. To start with, what is an adoption of a particular ingredient in a category or a product? Okay. Given a trend, what is its relevance from a business point of view or from a consumer point of view? For example, given the current situation of COVID, there is a trend of immunity foods and functional foods being consumed by the end consumers. As a company, in the context of this trend, what is the innovation opportunities that you should care about? So that's another strategic question to ask. or competitive analysis from a details of nutrition, flavors, consumer perception. Even if you are a restaurant, you would want to stay relevant in the location where you are and also from the consumer needs in that location. So what kind of new menu items that you should be launching, which is more catered to the time or the season and the changing consumer needs. These are a bunch of use cases that our customers use our platform to use to aid their decision-making process.
Yeah, all great points and example use cases that you just mentioned. And it's also important to point out that technology is just constantly advancing and changing as the years go by. And as you had mentioned, it's important to just improve the decision analytics kind of platform for with the consumers. So great points that you all brought up. And what do you hope to achieve within the next 5 to 10 years for your company?
I think as we stand today, we have a focus of being a data product company, more targeted specifically to CPG or FMCG sector right now. So I think going further, we want to expand that use cases to larger food markets, I think, which like food service, hospitality, which also means geo expansion in terms of the countries and the markets that we cover. And also there are adjacent categories. Food influences a lot of other factors, right? Whether it is medicine or whether it is, beauty, so on and so forth. There are a bunch of adjacent opportunities that we want to expand to. And last but not the least, is instead of just being a data product company, going further, we want to position ourselves as a data platform company where we can enable other technology. So I think even the food companies, they themselves are becoming more tech savvy, and they are quickly ramping up building their own technology teams. I think that's a key area that we want to focus on going further. How can we become a building block to accelerate that analytics process, whether it is using our platform directly or help them build their own platforms as well.
Yeah, definitely. And Sai, I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today on the Data Standard podcast. Where can everyone find you online to connect?
Sure. I think LinkedIn is one of the best ways to reach out to us. And other than that, we are quite active in various data science conferences. We have YouTube channels as well. I think that's the best place to reach us as we stand now.
Yeah, that's perfect. And to our audience, for more information on the Data Standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io, as well as on our LinkedIn and YouTube channel. And this episode is sponsored by Pandio. So thank you so much, Sai, for joining us. It was such a pleasure to have you, and I hope to have you again soon.
Thanks, Catherine. This was a pleasure to talk to you today.